There is this tiny dot on the African map, smaller than New Jersey. But inside this desert strip are the world's most significant military powers staring at each other. The United States has a base here, as do China, France, Japan, and Italy. All are within driving distance of each other. This is Djibouti, the most crowded military neighborhood on Earth. From the air, it looks ordinary. Dry hills, dusty ports, nothing special. But zoom out and you see the secret. Djibouti sits on the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a narrow choke point that links the Red Sea to the Indian Ocean. 10% of global trade passes through Djibouti. But here is the problem. Djibouti might not be safe with these military bases. In 2018, the United States gave a warning to China, claiming that China was shining lasers at their pilots in Djibouti, posing a real threat to their lives. China denied the accusations. However, it is evident that these two rivals, staying next door in Djibouti, pose a significant risk. If anything goes wrong between the US and Chinese military bases in Djibouti, the result could be chaotic. That is why I created this video. To show you why Djibouti is more important than you ever thought, why every major country wants to have a stake in it, and what this means not only for Djibouti, but for the entire world. Globally, more than 10% of all maritime trade, including a large chunk of Europe's oil shipments, passes through this strait. Djibouti does not just watch this strait, it has overseas access. Its territory flanks the shipping lines. That means if you control Djibouti, you gain control of the eyes, infrastructure, and ideally the ability to contest movement through the Bab el-Mandeb. But that doesn't just end at water. Djibouti sits on the edge of instability. Yemen, across the strait, is racked by civil war and Houthi rebels. On the other hand, there is Somalia, also affected by civil wars and the Somali pirates. This proximity produces both risk and opportunity. Houthi rebels have cut undersea communication cables beneath the Red Sea, affecting up to 25% of Asia-Europe data flow. In short, Djibouti's gold is its geographical location. Countries are trying to establish military bases here because they recognize that any country that gains a lasting foothold in Djibouti is positioning itself at the fulcrum of global trade, regional conflict, and strategic choke points. The United States has built a network of drone bases across Africa in countries like Niger, Somalia, Chad, Cameroon, and Djibouti, among others. In Djibouti, the United States operates its most extensive military base in Africa. The United States uses Camp Lemonnier military base as a launch pad for counter-terrorism missions across Somalia, Yemen, and the Horn of Africa. Camp Lemonnier is the central nervous system of the United States drone operations and special forces in the region, hosting thousands of troops and contractors. The US signed a multi-year lease with Djibouti worth tens of millions of dollars annually. The US has a lease on Camp Lemonnier until 2044. From this base, Washington tracks Al-Shabaab, keeps an eye on Yemen, and runs humanitarian evacuations, the kind of footprint no superpower gives up easily. However, the US is not the only one here. Japan established its first post-World War II overseas military base in Djibouti in 2011. Italy followed in 2013. German, Spanish, and British military personnel are also here, operating from US and French bases. In 2017, China also locked in its position.
China has officially opened its first overseas military base in Djibouti with a flag-raising ceremony.
Djibouti relies heavily on foreign trade and revenue from these military bases. Ethiopia, with over 120 million people, depends on Djibouti for the transit of more than 90% of its trade. The Chinese base in Djibouti was established as logistical facilities to ensure China's performance of missions such as escorting, peacekeeping, and humanitarian aid in Africa and West Asia. China wanted to protect trade and support anti-piracy missions. However, China's base in Djibouti speaks volumes. The base is located at a deep water port at the entrance to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the same lifeline that carries Chinese exports to Europe. China pays Djibouti around $20 million a year for its location. They signed a 10-year contract with an option to extend for a further 10 years. Japan, on the other hand, established its base in 2011 as part of an effort to combat piracy in the Gulf of Aden. It was a quiet, yet historic move, as it was projected to enhance Japan's military power abroad. Italy followed soon after, establishing the Amedeo Gile base in 2013. All these countries used Djibouti to secure global commerce, among other missions. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates also want a peace. Since 2017, Saudi Arabia and Djibouti have been in discussions to build a Saudi military base in Djibouti. These three Gulf countries want to have bases in Djibouti because just across the waters lies Yemen, the heart of their proxy war with Iran. For the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, Djibouti is not just about ports. It serves as a strategic lookout post on the Red Sea. Djibouti is slowly turning its location into a business model. However, there is a risk that comes with this leasing business. Djibouti is leasing land to rivals. Currently, the leases are profitable. However, as more players join, maintaining peace will become increasingly impossible. The foreign military bases in Djibouti are just a short distance apart. Underneath the polite diplomacy lies a dangerous proximity. Tensions flicker beneath the surface. In 2018, the Pentagon accused the Chinese personnel of pointing military-grade lasers at US pilots operating in and around Djibouti. The US gave an instance where two pilots on a C-130 cargo plane suffered minor eye injuries as they came in to land at Camp Lemonnier. The US stated that it was taking the threat as a genuine concern and was taking it very seriously. The Pentagon claimed that such incidents occurred several times. China denied these claims, calling them completely inconsistent with the facts. Even though China denied the accusations, such incidents, whether intentional or accidental, can easily start a deadly war between the US and China. With these two countries having military bases close to each other, any small escalation or miscalculation could spark a confrontation.